Hey everyone, and welcome to Backseat Sports. I'm Josh, that is Caleb, and today we have a big one. We got the predictions video for Georgia Southern and the breakdown and takeaways and everything we learned from the North Dakota game. Maybe a little bit scarier than we wanted to be, and we're going to be talking about maybe a little bit of the drama between Scott Frost, Mark Whipple, or whatever was going on with the play calling in the second half, and maybe some more, Husker drama in there as well when it comes to Ramir Johnson. There's a lot to talk about today, obviously, when it comes to both games and the expectations heading into Oklahoma 2 weeks from now as well. So there's a lot to talk about. Caleb, how you doing?
Josh, I'm doing well. I'm happy, but just a little unsatisfied. Memorial Stadium started off with the vibes high. Will Compton came in playing the trumpet. We were all pumped. And we scored a touchdown early. Great Anthony Grant run. Everything's feeling great. And then we just hit a wall. Nothing happens there it's 7-7 rolling to halftime. We scored no more points. The world has crumbled. Everybody is convinced Scott Frost is fired, and we're watching the wheels completely fall off.
On Twitter, basically everyone was talking like, all right, who's Nebraska's next coach? Like, the halftime talk was, wow, it was bad.
And it didn't get much better into the end of the third quarter because it was 17-17. And you're like, oh my gosh, we're still going to lose.
Yeah.
And then luckily in the fourth quarter, we closed it out. But it wasn't a very satisfying game as most of those FCS teams, what we were both looking to see.
Well, no.
We thought it was going to be a nice blowout, some positive, movement. And we got some of that in the game, but also just a lot of unrest and uneasiness as well.
So as the game started, the line got betted up to 29 before the game started. So it opened at 21.5. So Nebraska, became heavy favorites by kickoff, which was much different than when we started our video. When we made our video, it was at 21.5. And so, 29 felt pretty uncomfortable at that point, and that was what ended up happening, obviously, coming short of that. Obviously, we broke our 7-game winning streak, so we'll take that for sure. And like you
Thank
said,
goodness.
Let's start on the offensive side and start breaking this thing down. What are your thoughts overall? Big picture thoughts here on the offense.
Yeah, first drive looked great, super nice. Obviously, it capped off by a nice Anthony Grant touchdown run, which was our saving grace, like you said, later at the end of the game. But, it's just a nice variance. It was good passing, some short passes, some long passes, inside, outside, up the middle, and everything just looked nice and in rhythm. And then it just disappeared on us as, the classic Nebraska offense has come to be.
We only had 4 drives in the first half, though, which was that's why it felt so weird. There was the good and the bad in the first half, like you said. The first drive of the game, incredible, 87 yards, 8 plays. Everything was in rhythm. It looked dominant, like you said. And then just the horrible second play of the second drive, Thompson lit up and fumbled, and just oh no, here we go again. Was kind of like that thought process there. The positives, on first downs, we were really good. On first downs, we outgained North Dakota 254 to 83 yards. We had 154 rushing yards on 21 carries on first downs. There was just a lot of the positives there, but then you just have those glaringly terrible drives, including the drive where, Casey ended up throwing the INT where Gabe Irvin dropped the pass. And then we had a terrible run, and then Casey throws a pick, and even I think the kickoff was muffed as well. So it's just what are these plays happening right now? But then things started ironing out near the fourth quarter.
It was just very frustrating. Travis Vokalek wasn't playing. Just felt like some of the consistency on the passing wasn't there.
Yeah, just last game we saw, when he went out last game, we were missing it, and it felt like we missed it again. Oh yeah, let's start with Casey Thompson then. So what are your thoughts? Obviously, last game we thought, all right, maybe Casey Thompson's the truth. He might be the real deal here. And in this game, it was a little bit of a step back, not as consistent. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously you went to the medical tent. He got lit up on a few, on those 2 sacks there in the first quarter. And Trevor Purdy started warming up, and I'm like, man, he is hurt. It looked, a couple of those hits were rough on him.
Yeah.
And, North Dakota was having some little extracurriculars too after the play. Just there were some late hits from him as well. Our offensive line was just letting open the floodgates, it felt like, in the first half.
With the INT, it was really just a really good play at the same point from the linebacker, and a good play call from
hid behind the referee there before the pick. It was nice.
He lined up the line of scrimmage, then dropped back into coverage, and Casey just completely missed the read, completely missed him, threw it right at him. So it's just, that's tough. Also a good play on the ball from him too, from the linebacker. But man,
yeah, it was a good jump.
It is tough. I mean, that's, as a starting quarterback, you can't be letting that happen. Offensively, where it's just there was only one glaring star, And the rest of that was a mixed bag of pros and cons.
Yeah, Anthony Grant. We've already said his name like 5 times this video.
You mean Amir Abdullah?
Scott Frost might not name him as, the back, and he might say, oh, it was a mix of the offensive line. And, we have a bunch of good running backs. We all know Anthony Grant is clearly at this point the star co-offensive player of the week in the Big Ten. First time that's happened for us with a running back since 2018 with good old Divino Zigbo and Scott Frost's first year.
Yeah.
And while Ozigbo carried us that win against Minnesota, Anthony Grant has definitely already carried us to a couple wins. He is the difference maker. And yeah, our offensive line, it's not good at run block, but Anthony Grant makes him look good at run block. And that seems pretty clear.
I mean, AG turned a few plays where there was basically nothing there. Bumped it outside, got a few yards, fell forward for like 4 or 5. I mean, he was literally turning nothing into something a few times there. I mean, he was a miracle worker at points. Obviously, we saw that again, that breakaway speed, which is something we were so excited about in the last game. And we see it again here. So, I mean, the hype only gets bigger for Anthony Abdullah Grant at this point. And I mean, 189 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, it's hard not to be like ecstatic about a Big Ten player of the week.
Yeah, and the great thing too is I really like AJ Allen as the backup. I would be just as excited about him as well if Anthony Grant wasn't just a breakout. I mean, he's a true freshman. We have a lot to be excited about in AJ Allen. 11 carries, 58 yards, a touchdown. It was very complimentary. And it feels like for the first time, Nebraska's loaded at a position on the offense. We have 2 really solid running backs who it clearly shows that that's our future. And it's exciting as a Nebraska fan to finally have some really nice running backs. Again, we've been pretty accustomed to it throughout, most of the 2010s.
For sure. I mean, inherently, we only assume we haven't even seen close to the best of AJ Allen yet. 2 games into his career, and he's averaging over 5 a carry, 11 carries, 58 yards, and touchdown in this game. And he continues to show that speed on the edge and some really quick cuts too. So I'm excited to see how kind of like that 2-headed monster can do. And definitely, like you said, it plays into why Ramir Johnson's not seen the field and the frustration that he's had. I mean, only 2 snaps in this game, no touches. Obviously, he hasn't been happy with that. But it's like, man, like when guys are dominating, like Anthony Grant is, and AJ Allen's looking so good, it's like it only makes sense he's not seeing the field.
Insert sad at a Ramir Johnson tweet here. I think he deleted that for obvious reasons. Obviously, that's not going to get you anywhere further with the coaches by tweeting something like that. You feel bad for Ramir, but also very excited about Anthony Grant and AJ Allen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a wide receiver, again, Trey Palmer continues to show that he's the real deal. I mean, he was making play after play and obviously went up and got one in this game. That and Anthony Grant's massive touchdown, the 2 plays that got everyone hyped. And both these dudes continue to show that they are playmakers and difference makers on the field.
Yeah, no doubt. I do wonder where Isaiah Garcia Castaneda went. He caught a couple punts, but he really didn't get any targets there.
Yeah, he did play 23 snaps, which was about as many as Omar Manning. And Omar was back in this game and had a few nice plays, which probably had something to do with the lack of IGC's playing time. But it was surprising that he didn't really get targeted or see the ball as after his dominant game 1.
Yeah, I'd like to see him get some more snaps and targets. I get that Washington has the connection with Casey Thompson and Alante Brown. You need to get targets too. But yeah, I'd like to see all 4 of those guys out on the field a little bit more. It's our offensive line that's really the question here, is because they really looked bad in pass protection this game.
Dude, it gets scary when you're getting lit up like that against North Dakota, and you're like, dude, we are putting letting Casey Thompson out to dry right now against North Dakota.
We got Wisconsin and Michigan and Iowa to look forward to eventually.
Exactly.
We gotta be doing a little bit better than that.
Oh man, I mean, Prohaska did have a bounce back game from his tragic game 1, which was good to see. But then again, Corcoran and Benhart again struggled at times. And I mean, obviously Prohaska was the biggest reason at least for the fumble sack. But outside of that horrible play, he actually was pretty consistent and played well. But that play did cost points.
Yeah, I mean, there's a play where Benhart.
Oh. He fell asleep.
Guys, we have so many gems over these years of just blunders by our offensive line throughout the years.
This is one of the best.
But this one, it's just chef's kiss for just bad. The place gets snapped, and then there's just Bryce Benhart just sitting there, like Josh said, taking a nap. I don't know, maybe just falling asleep. He's just a little comfortable in his position. Then like 2 seconds later, he's like, oh, what? Where am
unless
I?
this is some like next level
Scheming?
O-line scheming here. I mean,
It just looked like narcolepsy to me. So
it is tough out there. Too much NyQuil for Benhart before the game. All right. So I don't know. Overall, like, do you feel more confident about the offense because of the dominance from Anthony Grant? Or are you still worried long term?
I think it's a net negative, honestly.
Is it?
I think Anthony Grant is definitely exciting, and obviously that's a huge positive.
Yeah.
But with our offensive line still looking as questionable, and then Casey, kind of getting banged up, and then still not looked worse than
we
he
did see him run the ball in this game.
That was exciting, and that's a great point because it looked like that felt like a little bit more Scott Frost there in the second half.
Exactly.
With some of those run plays.
Good transition. Professional.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. I know.
So, okay, so let's get into that then. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk during the game and then after the game about potentially a little bit of a philosophy shift around halftime with this offense. Obviously, in the first half, it really struggled with a lack of consistency after that first drive, and we couldn't really get anything going. Offensive line was struggling, and overall, just nothing really happening. And then the second half, we started seeing a little bit more life there. Obviously, the first drive of the second half was fantastic, 75 yards, 6 plays, just really great. We had a few more great drives in the second half as well. 5-play, 75-yard drive in the third quarter, and an 11-play, 89-yard drive in the fourth quarter as well. The dispute comes here is that in the second half, Frost was grabbing that play sheet, had it out in front of him the whole time and talking, looking like he was calling plays. And then when asked about it in the postgame, Frost said he's not going to talk about it.
No comment.
And made no comment. And it almost looked like it was guaranteed that Frost was calling a lot of plays in the second half. And so all of this coming off of the coattails of him having the creativity discussions with Mark Whipple, and then the struggles in the first half leading into a more successful second half with Frost play calling with an option play in there, which we know how Frost wants to make those happen. Thoughts on this potential dispute?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was calling the plays. Mark Whipple last as the play caller a solid day and a half.
Pretty good.
A week and a half for him. So not a bad run.
Was it the right call?
I don't know. I think
it worked.
It worked because the run game wore down the offense. I don't think our offense looked particularly better or worse. It was just Anthony Grant in the fourth quarter eventually wore down, and those runs just kept paying dividends. I don't think it was any more consistent, though. I mean,
but there were more.
Nebraska's
runs in the first
always
half.
been good at the scripted plays.
In the second half,
in the first, our first drive and our drive out of halftime is usually our best drives of the game, consistently under Scott Frost.
Yeah, literally consistently.
And then everything else is just kind of disappears. Like, we're great when we give it a week to script a drive and we practice it and we run through the install. But then after that, the rest of the game, it's like
our touchdowns are grand slams. Our touchdowns are big plays normally, outside of those like 1 or 2 consistent drives starting the halves. And we saw that even in this game.
And once Big Ten play starts, that red zone, we'll get those boom plays, but then we get to the red zone and then we can't finish. So I'm definitely it looks to be still just as concerning. So I don't think it really made that much of a difference. I would rather just keep Whipple doing it, trust that, figure out these new plays now instead of just kind of go back on the crutch that really hasn't gotten us any further.
Yeah, I mean, the only difference is that in the first half, there was a lot less runs. And in the second half, there were a lot more runs. I think it was like a 40-60 swap, basically, where it's like 40% runs in the first half, then 60% in the second. That would be the debate, is that Frost was like, all right, we got to keep running the ball here. It's working. And he stuck with what works. So I can see the argument, but it's something to keep your eye on moving forward. If this starts becoming more of a problem on the staff, the dispute between Whipple and Frost. Eventually we're gonna have a UFC match on the sideline. Now, I mean, I'm gonna have to say I'll take Frost.
Frost, yeah, he's got a little bit more age.
I think that's the least of Whipple's problems. Those muscles alone on Frost are gonna be a problem. But all right, let's go to the defensive side here. An interesting time for the defense. We were a little bit worried there in the first half. Like the 16-play, 80-yard drive for a touchdown that North Dakota had that was scary. You're like, oh no, like they're just
they just drove it. Even from the first drive that they had, they didn't score, but like they moved the chains a few times. And it was at that moment, I think all of the Nebraska fans were like, oh, we're in for a game. The first half, Nebraska didn't record a tackle for loss. and we were 6 straight quarters without a sack. And again, that was North Dakota and Northwestern. But then in the second half, turned around.
It did.
Garrett Nelson kept getting pressure, and O'Shawn Mathis looked great. 5 hurries from Mathis, 3 hurries from Nelson. Kind of more of what we expected to see. Again, granted, this isn't a high caliber team, but North Dakota's offensive line was pretty good for the FCS. Yeah. And we know they're one of the higher end FCS, teams, I guess.
Yeah, and the best conference in the FCS.
And they each had a sack. That was definitely something I think
all
Nebraska
Garrett Nelson's
fans.
Sack was, that was something.
Yeah, strip sack. That was exciting.
That'll be on the highlight reels for the rest of the season, no doubt.
And O'Shawn Mathis had more of the coverage sack, which we know that
that's where he loves. Exactly. And that's where we saw him dominate in 2020. So that's really interesting for sure. Yeah, Garrett Nelson obviously was the guy we had circled before the game. Like, we need to see Garrett Nelson bounce back in a big way. And he definitely did. I mean, 8 tackles, 6 solo tackles, like you said, the hurries, the sack, the strip sack. He was all over the field making great plays. The tackling is still inconsistent, and hopefully we can get there with him. But at this point, he's one of the most well-rounded players on the team, without a doubt.
Yeah, and Mathis is good at the tackles as well. Again, he was more consistent last game.
He's still kind of a one-trick pony, though. I mean, he's still a pass rusher. Like, what he does is he rushes the passer. That's all he does. I mean, you're not going to see him dropping back in coverage and making plays or really even run stopping that well. He wants to rush the passer, and that's what he's good at. And he got to do it this game and was fantastic. His ability to get low and around the edge, he really has speed when he gets his shoulder down and really gets around the edge there. Like, he had some nice plays.
Yeah, there was he almost had another stack as well. It was so close. Yeah, when Garrett Nelson had about as disappointing as an opener as you can. Yeah. He talked about it too, how, just every week was different, and he had a good mentality coming back into it. He was pretty shaken up after that. And
the question was is this just a really, really, really great Northwestern offensive line? And if that might have been the case.
He was definitely going up against an NFL guy. He was definitely taking advantage of there, but glad to see him bounce back.
How are your thoughts on the defensive tackles here? It's still some interesting things going on.
Stephon Wynn looked really good, and so did Devin Drew, was pretty solid. But here's the thing. Ty Robinson continues to look like garbage. He is so bad.
He's bad.
He looks like the worst defense.
Husker fans, when are we going to accept this? He wasn't good last year. He's a great guy. He's got a huge body. He's a big dude.
I'm sure he's nice.
He seems like a nice guy. But when he's not very good.
When it comes to winning games, which is what Nebraska is hopefully about, he is not helping us get towards that goal. Yeah. He's definitely hindering us.
Yeah, luckily the snaps were more even this game, which is what we wanted to see, and that's something we're definitely going to talk about. But we need to see these things continue to flip even farther. The arm tackles are probably my biggest issue. Is this dude just kind of he falls on people and then just he slides off of them. So he had 38 snaps. Devin Drew had 33, and Stephen Wynn had 29. And like you said, I think Stephen
Wynn with the fumble recovery, shout out.
Wynn continues to look like a dude. I'm excited to see more of him. Obviously, I think we could see a really exciting rest of the season for Stephen Wynn, and he should absolutely be starting over Ty Robinson.
Yeah, no doubts. Colton Feist, it was hit or miss.
Yeah.
Nash was hit or miss, but yes. I'd still rather see both of them than Ty Robinson. He should be buried on the depth chart at this point.
Agreed.
Yeah, I guess we go down to linebackers. So Nick Henrich on the sidelines, he was standing up on the bench there, cast on his hand. He's looking like he's going to be out for a little bit. Hausman came in to replace Nick, and he didn't have the best game.
No. Obviously, we were hoping for a lot more. That's the thing. It's when you bring in a true freshman like that, he played in the last game a few snaps when Henrich went out for a little while when apparently he hurt his hand. And then Henrich came back in and didn't look great. So this game, we tried Hausman at first, and it wasn't working. I mean, he's obviously more athletic. He's obviously has a better ability of getting to the edge and getting to the open space.
Faster, and he looks like he's been in the right place more.
But he is a true freshman, and he definitely makes mistakes. He was out of place a few times, too, especially in pass coverage, and then was still missing tackles. So it got
couple really bad blown coverages.
Right. It got bad enough where we brought Chris Kalerovac in, who, as far as we know, hasn't been a middle linebacker in practice. He's been playing nickelback, and he came in and actually looked pretty good.
It looked like more of a natural position for him.
That's the thing, right? Because And nickelback, you got to be athletic. You have to be great in coverage. You have to
Fast.
be fast. You have to be able to make tackles in open field. None of those things Chris Clairvet can do. And middle linebacker, it actually kind of works. He can fill the gaps.
No, it did.
And he's decent in zone coverage in the middle of the field. It actually looked like a improvement from Nick Henrich, which is a surprise to be sure.
Yeah, definitely. I was definitely excited. I'd like to see him play that position more. Definitely just take him away from the outside linebacker. That's just not at all his bag.
I was gonna say it's gonna be interesting if he ends up sticking there, as a starter eventually this week. That'd be really fascinating. I'm gonna be probably one of the biggest things I look at.
Yeah, same. Man, Luke Reimer, speaking of linebackers,
Man,
not looking good. He's leading the team in tackles, but that's just such a flawed statement because this last week he had 7 tackles, 0 of them solo. The man just cannot finish a tackle by himself.
dude, he
looked bad in coverage. He's just not.
What is up?
Reimer looked good last year. I don't know.
He was at least solid last year. I mean, he definitely flashed earlier in the year last year. Like Buffalo was probably his best game last year. It wasn't this bad. It just so far has not been good. And hopefully we can see that improvement moving into the Big Ten play because, wow, we need it.
Yeah, we definitely need it. It definitely did not look good and still hasn't looked good. And then we move into the secondary. Gifford and Buford looked pretty solid. Buford really had some great plays there. He had
he hits
a blown
hard.
coverage, but then after the blown coverage where North Dakota got into the territory, he like into the red zone, he made an insane tackle and then an insane pass deflection like on the goal line, and it was really hyped to see. He's definitely solid. He's going to continue to get better at the safety position. I'm very excited
he's
for him.
pretty good around the line of scrimmage too. And like I said, he hits
really good
hard,
at tackling.
man. Like he brings it. And I love that from him. I'm interested to see exactly how good he can be this season.
Yeah. Not the same can be said for Miles Farmer though, man. He's just not tackling with his arms. He just kind of throws his body at them. And it's just been a poor tackling performance for him the last 2 games.
Yeah, he's been a little bit out of position too. It hasn't been great from Farmer, which has been definitely worrying.
A disappointment because we thought that he was going to make a step up, and we thought he was probably going to be our best safety and probably our best secondary player just because he's had so much experience in these past couple of years, but just hasn't been the case yet.
No. Yeah, so I mean, like Tommy Hill was the other kind of surprise too, where he took a massive step back from last week, where he looked so good last week. I think that's one thing we want to see this week is a resurgence of Tommy Hill. I mean, he's definitely physical, and he had some nice plays on the ball, but he also had some penalties, and he had some really bad plays around the first down marker and some missed tackles too. I mean, there was 15 total missed tackles in this game.
Tackles, just missed tackles and drop passes. I mean, is what it feels like on both sides. But yeah, 15. And drum roll, who has had the most missed tackles? This is 5 bonus points for Backseat Sports. Yes, these are very important. I haven't handed these out yet.
After 2 games,
Can you name
two games now, who has the most missed tackles on Nebraska football, according to PFF?
Bum, 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 bum. If you guessed the one and only Nick Henrich, you would be correct with 5 missed tackles. That is correct, ladies and gentlemen.
And why that is funny, folks, is because he's only played 1 game. And he has a 3 missed tackle lead on number 2, where there are 9 players tied at number 2 with 2 missed tackles. So
that's why we said he had a bad game. Yeah.
I mean, it was definition of bad. It was about as bad as you could get. And so, we'll see what happens moving forward. It's going to be tough. Gifford is continuing to be the bright star for me. And again, he's a way more reliable tackler. And we saw him make some nice plays at the line of scrimmage again. And in coverage, still looked really good, man. And I'm excited to see where he can be on the rest of this year. So,
yeah, I still want to see more Ativa Magla-Clement. Just insert that there too. He looks like the hardest hitter of our linebackers. And he looks good every time we've seen him, whether in the spring game, he came in for a couple plays at the end of this game. He just looks way too good to not be on the field every time we see him.
To not even be given a chance with the starters is what's surprising. We bring in Hausman, you bring in literally a nickelback to play middle linebacker before you bring in Ativa Magla-Clement. It's surprising.
Yeah, I don't know why he's buried on the depth chart. I don't know if it's a practice thing, but when the times we've seen him in game, he looks like a stud.
Nebraska, Georgia Southern. Finally, we could get here. Obviously, a little bit long of a breakdown, but there's so much to talk about. But this is going to be an interesting game. Obviously, it's a night game, which is weird for a game like Nebraska versus Georgia Southern to be there. But the stadium is going to be rocking. It's probably good that it's a night game. It'll get the fans there and excited for it, because otherwise there might not have been as much hype as Nebraska would want for
this takes me back to NIU 2019. I think that's the last non-con night game we've
there
had.
you go. So obviously Nebraska's opened up at a 20-point favorite. It's now betted up to a 21.5-point favorite with a 59-point over-under, which is kind of bold for Nebraska considering what happened last week. But right now it's a minus 1,400 money line, which is about a 6.7% chance for an upset is what that means. As for Georgia Southern, obviously they're in the Sun Belt, one of the Sun Belt teams. Last year they finished 2-6 in the conference and 3-8 overall. Obviously they fired their head coach and brought in Clay Helton, which is USC's former head coach. The last 7 years, a pretty good get for a school, like Georgia Southern. Helton had 3 Pac-12 championship appearances, 1 Pac-12 championship win in 2017.
Sam Darnold.
And they looked good, man. And so it's going to be interesting. So obviously game 1 was against Morgan State. They dominated 59-7, a little bit of a slow start. What are your thoughts on Georgia Southern in that game, and what do you see?
Yeah, 59-7, you're like, oh, they blew them out. But the game didn't really feel like that. Now, Morgan State did make a ton of mistakes that definitely gave Georgia Southern the win there, because their offense really didn't feel like they deserved as many points as they had. There was a pretty wild play there where it was a deflected touchdown
off the
score.
Back of the corner. Yeah, it was crazy. Obviously, Morgan State is another FCS team, so it's kind of a situation where it's like, if you're Georgia Southern, you should beat them pretty easily, and it's definitely a worse FCS team than North Dakota. But regardless, a 59-7 win against Morgan State is still a pretty impressive showing for Georgia Southern in their first game with a new head coach, even though it was tied, like you said, early. I mean, it was tied 7-7 with 9 minutes in the second, and then it was 17-7 at halftime. And then they turned it up in the second half with all those mistakes from Morgan State. So overall, it seemed like Georgia Southern fans saw Helton's debut as a success against Morgan State.
Yeah, I mean, if that was Nebraska's score, I think fans would have felt a lot better about that too. So
yeah,
I definitely think it is a success. And when your defense dominates the way they did, where again the only score was
a pick six,
you feel pretty good about that. Georgia Southern's offense, they're very willing to go no huddle. And Josh and I saw some pretty fun plays throughout watching them on film. They did a few fun things. A fake pitch wheel route, a fake screen.
Yeah, they were nice. There was some oh, we should be stealing these.
Yes.
I mean, obviously the coaches will be watching the films. Maybe we can integrate some of these. There was one that was like you said, a fake screen. They pump fake to the sideline. The guy who was going to catch the bubble screen stopped. And then darted up the sideline, and it was a seam route fake screen. It was sick. And it was a 30 or 40 yard play. I'm like, wow, this is impressive. But yeah, like you said, they definitely love them some no huddle and some bubble screens.
Yeah, and it's a familiar face coming back to Memorial Stadium. Good old Kyle Van Treese. He's played at Memorial Stadium twice now, back-to-back years. It was Buffalo's starting QB in the last 3 years, 6-year senior. We saw him last year, 29 for 46, 367 yards, 4 touchdowns, and interception. And he had a great game. It didn't feel like he had 367 yards when you watched the film.
There was so many screens.
Yeah. But it tied, the 4 touchdowns tied Georgia Southern's school record for passing touchdowns. Good for him to see in a good first game. But yeah, it was also the 4th most passing yards in school history at 367. Low bar there. Low bar there at Georgia Southern, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with Van Treese, he's not the most accurate of throwers, and you definitely saw it in that game. There's moments where if he has a lot of time, he can zing it in there, and he looks good. But at the same time, it's man, there's opportunities where he tries to really get it in there, and you're like, he
not good
either
under pressure.
Overthrows them or drastically underthrows them. I mean, last year he threw that pick to Reimer last year in the Buffalo game. And in this game, he threw that pick 6. He was hit while he was thrown, and that definitely had something to do with it. But he is prone to make mistakes, and even though he's a 6-year senior, he's going to have a little bit more composure than most non-Power 5 QBs that come to Memorial Stadium. I think there's opportunities for Nebraska to make some plays on it. Georgia Southern actually has a really impressive skill group for the level of their school. I think they have some athletes there for sure. They have a pretty nice 3-headed monster of backs. Gerald Green, Jalen White and OJ Arnold, who all saw a handful of carries in this game. Green had 12 carries, White had 10 carries, and OJ Arnold had 6 carries, but he ended up with 2 touchdowns. And that was actually his first collegiate carries of his career. They all looked very good. And in Georgia Southern's history, they've always had, like, their running game's been kind of what defined them. And like last year, even on PFF, 5 of their 6 highest graded offensive players were their running backs last year. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, I mean, on film, all these guys popped and were physical and were able to have success, especially bumping the ball outside against that Morgan State defense.
I actually was really more impressed, I think, this year with the wide receiver core. They had some really nice plays, and it was the speed of their wide receiver core that really impressed me on the film. I think Caleb Hood and Singleton were both kind of the highlights. Caleb Hood had a 46-yard touchdown run on a screen, and it was just probably one of the most exciting plays of the game for him. And he looked good on the kick returns too. So
yeah, Singleton, like you said, I mean, he had that an insanely nice, like kind of like back shoulder fade towards the pylon for a touchdown. Catch. Yeah, no, that was the thing. And then there was the one-handed catch in the back corner, which was Derwin Burgess. They were all making plays. And Sam Kennerson, he's a redshirt sophomore for him, and he's really fast, physical, and he took some screens like 20, 30 yards as well. So they have playmakers. They have to be on the outside, and they're going to force you to make tackles in open space, which that's a good strategy against Nebraska.
Yeah, if you make our linebackers work for it in coverage, you're going to find some success.
Yes.
Yeah, that definitely scares me a little bit, but I do think Van Treese isn't the most amazing. I mean, their O-line definitely had some problems. I think Morgan State definitely at times got to him.
Yeah, I mean, Van Treese feels like Walmart, like basically like a Walmart Spencer Petras, and that's not a compliment.
That bad, huh?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. We didn't even mention this.
At least a Walmart Graham Mertz, right? Like, not that bad, right?
Yeah, I don't know, man. But I mean, again, the only thing that made us feel better about our first half against North Dakota was Iowa's performance against South Dakota State.
Thank you,
how
Iowa.
did we not mention that in the first part of this video? I mean, they didn't even score a touchdown.
Only Iowa could score 7 points, and 2 of them were safeties. The best player of their game was their punter, which was the same as last season. Yes.
Man, it's tough.
I mean, Kirk Ferentz has to be so proud of his son. I mean, just dish it up. Just what a delectable offensive performance of a solid 3 points.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about Georgia Southern's defense. They're actually pretty interesting because they have a really veteran defense. Multiple 5th and 6th year players on the defense. They mostly play a 3-4. They get kind of creative even on the defensive side. They ran a handful of sets with only 1 or 2 down linemen. They really mix things up. They have no problem lining up like 7 or 8 guys on the line of scrimmage and really throwing disguised looks. So they're pretty creative. And I really liked how they called the game. And on like 3rd downs, 3rd and short, who'd have thought? They love stacking the box and making you beat them on 3rd down. They were actually a pretty fun defense to watch.
Yeah, I was impressed with Najee Thompson. Really looked good as a cornerback. Number 6, I think he was a problem. And yeah, they weren't afraid to blitz whatsoever, which I think will be fun in this game as our offensive line will have some more learning to do, some good tape. And, maybe this is the week where they learn how to defend a blitz or block. It'll be a great thing. Maybe it's this week.
Yeah, I think they definitely have some talent in the secondary, like you said. Najee Thompson, I think, for me, and then Anthony Wilson as well, like I think really stood out. Number 12, he's their safety. Up front, they even have some really big time playmakers like Isaac Walker, who only played 10 snaps last year, but then graded incredibly well in his 25 snaps in this game. And I thought he looked really impressive on film as well. So we'll see. I think they have some playmakers that can test Nebraska, and it's a really good game to have going into Oklahoma, and hopefully we don't overestimate it. So let's talk about X factors for this game and the ways that it can go right, the ways it can go wrong, and what we need to see for Nebraska to come out and beat that 21-point spread in this game. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like we said earlier in the video, I think Kyle Van Treese getting after him. If O'Shawn Mathis and Garrett Nelson can give him problems, again, that's going to cover up a lot of the issues we have at the linebacker core at the moment while we're still kind of trying to figure it out. And again, we saw that pressure just fixes a lot of problems on defense if we can get to the quarterback.
We have the talent in the secondary, where enough talent at least where you could line up, and send 6 or maybe even 7 guys on a blitzes more often than we do, I think.
And we started to in the second half of last game, which was kind of nice to see. We did,
and we saw, and it was starting to hit a little bit better. And I think, and we saw even in this game again, Kyle Van Treese, he threw that pick 6 when he got hit, and he was a little rattled, and he can be very inaccurate when pressured. And we saw that last year, even in the Buffalo game. So I think we really need to be dialing up some pressure, trying to switch it up. And if it's not working with just sending 3 or 4, then we got to dial it up and make Van Treese beat us, because I really don't think he can.
Yeah, I actually think Caleb Tanner looked pretty good on the pass rush.
Agreed.
I'd be interested to see him just even playing in an inside linebacker role on some of those, like third down plays. I think he'd be kind of interesting in the inside.
Interesting.
As a pass rusher.
I mean, one thing that we both definitely want to talk about with the X Factors was talking about, preparation and discipline for Nebraska's defense, because obviously Clay Helton's going to dial up some of these trick plays, and I think they're going to, leave it out on the field in this game and probably take some shots, whether it's actually trick plays or just having some really good play design like we talked about earlier on that offense with some of the nice screen passes and other things they dialed up in that game. But, Nebraska's got to stay prepared, disciplined, and stay home and contain. And it's been a mixed bag for Nebraska's defense with how we've dealt with stuff like that in the past.
Yeah. Obviously, I'd like to see our safeties play more toward that line to gain. Again, we always just move a little too far back. I'd like to see just a little bit more of that. But I really think that running it in the inside, in between the tackles, Morgan State was able to do that against Georgia Southern. And if they can do that against Georgia Southern, then you betcha Anthony Grant and AJ Allen can have a field day with these guys, because there was big plays, big chunk plays. The
backside was open with Morgan State. Yeah. So I think like what we saw Anthony Grant do and kick it back to the left side and kick it down the sideline, I think that's something that could absolutely happen in this game. And if we can, use some of that zone blocking and open up the backside, I think that's going to be a legit play here where Anthony Grant could have a lot of success in this game. The only other X factor I think for us is I think we can really attack their defense here with plays towards the flats and use our speed. I'm still a little bit frustrated with how we haven't been as willing to work with some of these screen passes. We've seen the screen passes work early in the first half at times, and we saw Trey Palmer have some success with it last week. When Alante Brown has the ball in his hand, he's made plays. Get Thompson in rhythm and get the ball in Alante Brown and Trey Palmer's hands on the outside.
Agreed. Show me a little rub route action down there with some Chancellor Brewington and one of those guys.
And see what they can do.
Work out pretty well.
Exactly. Yeah. I always want to see us cook up some stuff like that. I think it can work. So now I just want to talk about the things that we want to see in this game when it comes to the improvement that we almost need to see heading into an Oklahoma game to feel like we have a chance. Because right now, I would imagine most Nebraska fans are feeling like, what? We are going to get destroyed against Oklahoma right now. So what do you want to see in this game to feel like we have a chance?
First, I'd be remiss without mentioning Wyatt Lewer's name. He played on special teams, and on that great blocked punt, for some reason, something just came into his mind to say, hey,
he got possessed.
I should pick that up. And it's just these things again where, he can't catch a football. He doesn't understand special teams. I just really think that the bench just calls his name on all times. I'm sorry, Wyatt, but it just can't play football.
It's got to be on the bench, man. Another thing that I want to see for sure, I think we both want to see this, is if we're going to be Oklahoma, we need to be at a point where we can trust our tackling as a core on defense. I mean, at this point, what's going to happen when you put true Big 12 athletes across the field for Oklahoma? We're going to miss tackles like crazy if we're playing like we are right now. And we have to see a full-blown game where tackling is consistent and effective. I think the only other thing that we definitely need to see is just a dominant game from Casey Thompson to feel like he can take on Oklahoma and take over a game. Because right now, he can hit a lot of great throws. But the question is, can he take over a game and get us over that hump to beat a great team like Oklahoma, even in Memorial Stadium? And so I'm looking for some connections downfield, but also just for those to get him in rhythm and see a huge game from him in a game like this.
Yeah, I'd like to see him bounce back. I mean, he's led the league, the Big 12 in touchdowns. He only has 2 passing touchdowns right now. A 4 touchdown game, something like that would really be nice from him.
So with that said, I think we can head into score predictions then and just kind of rock and roll. So where are you at right now in this game? What are your thoughts? Are you confident on the spread? Are you not? Where are you at?
Definitely not confident. I think last game really hampered that for me. I mean, it was an FCS school. Now we're jumping up to a full-on Division I FBS program. Granted, it's not one that everybody's heard of, but still.
But with a touted head coach and a 6th-year senior quarterback and veterans all
Lots
over the
of
defense.
athletes. I mean,
athletes on the perimeter. Like, they're a dangerous team.
Yeah, you have a lot of good football there in Georgia. So, again, it's really easy for them to get some good recruits. I think this will be a closer game than any of us want it. I'm going to go 38-28. You're going to feel about the same way we did, and then Anthony Grant's going to put it away for us here. But I think at times it's going to be
scary. So which matchups are you worried about?
I think it's just the turnover for us and our defense just not going to be able to get home. I think that they're just going to be able to do enough, and that speed that they actually have with their wide receivers, I think is going to hurt us. I think, those jet sweeps, those creative plays, they're going to score some touchdowns, whether it's a flea flicker or whatever Helton's got drawn up for us. I think they're just going to score some cheeky points on us, and I think we're going to hurt ourselves, and we're just not going to do enough in the first half. Hopefully it was just that first half. Last game was we were just shaking off the cobwebs of 7 losses in a row.
Well, and the cobwebs of flying back from Ireland. Like, I think there is a narrative there where you could say the first half was we were off our game because of the short week, a weird week of practices, less practices than you normally would have in a week. All of those things. I get what you're saying, but giving up 28 against Georgia Southern would be that would be bad. Like, I mean, that would be
we're averaging a lot of turnovers at the moment.
Yeah. My score prediction would be 42-20. I think I'll take the slightest of overs on the points right now. Although if I was actually betting cash on this game, I would not feel confident betting the over. I'd probably take the under. I would probably take Georgia Southern, but and the 21 points. But long story short, I do like the matchups for us on the offensive side of the ball. I do think that the running game could dominate it, across the board here. And I mean, our athletes at wide receiver are, miles, leaps and bounds better than any Morgan State and what we saw in that game. And they were able to keep Morgan State in check, but Trey Palmer and Omar Manning are guys that just don't exist on a Morgan State roster. And I think we're gonna have success downfield, and Casey should have enough time to make some plays. Obviously, we would have said the same thing against North Dakota. So the question is, I do think that part of that was the little bit of the rust and inconsistency in the first half with coming off of Ireland. And I think we're going to start finding our rhythm a little bit more here in this game. And the running game should really be clicking with Anthony Grant. I like our odds there. And defensively, like you said, I think we're going to get to Kyle Van Treese and at least force 1, if not 2 picks in this game and put us in some nice spots to score some points. So I'm feeling pretty confident we win this game at least by 17, but I'll take us 42-20.
Man, I love it. I just really like for this game not to be close whatsoever. I love the feeling in both of our first games where we score right off the gate and you're feeling awesome. And then it just kind of dwindles away. Instead, I just like to keep our foot on the gas. Just keep scoring those points and just have it be a great Saturday. I think there's a good case. The one thing is, it is a night game, and the theatrics will be out. The crowd will be loud.
It's gonna be intimidating.
That's very intimidating. This isn't Buffalo. Dominate. This isn't 11 a.m. This is 6:30, and you get the full teeth of Memorial Stadium.
Then the counter argument is that what if we are just completely overlooking them heading into an Oklahoma game next week? That's Fox noon kickoff.
I hope after these years we've learned that we don't overlook anybody. So, but who knows?
Amen. And that's why it's gonna be scary. So. Obviously, drop all your thoughts, your predictions, your worries, your qualms down below. We want to hear your thoughts on the Frost v. Whipple drama, and we want to hear your predictions for this game and your biggest takeaways from the Northwestern or the North Dakota game. So drop them all down below. We obviously read all the comments and love seeing your guys' thoughts. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. But as always, hit subscribe, because obviously a lot of you guys watch but aren't subscribed. So what's up with that? Hit the subscription button, hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And we have been uploading more lately. And follow us on Twitter. We always appreciate that. Links down in the description. But as always, guys, I'm Josh. That's Caleb. This has been Backseat Sports. And guys, we'll see you next time. Go Big Red.
Go Big Red.